Welcome to the panel discussion on 5G private networks. This will entail discussion on security aspects of core network, public data network, API and service platforms. We have with us Mr. Floyd DeCosta. Floyd is a serial entrepreneur and has worked at various organizations like Capgemini and Intralinks before beginning his entrepreneurial journey in 2017. Floyd is the co-founder of Blockchain Works and Block Armor. Blockchain Works is building a blockchain-powered digital banking and decentralized finance solution, and his other venture, Block Armor, is into zero trust cybersecurity solution for enterprise systems, cloud, and integrated IoT networks. The solution is powered by software-defined perimeter architecture and blockchain technology, and was featured among the top 25 cybersecurity innovations worldwide. Welcome, Floyd, to the panel.
Hi, Anand. Pleasure to be here.
We have with us Professor Kiran Kuchi. Professor Kiran is the founder of Visic Networks and professor at Electrical Department, IIT Hyderabad. Visic Networks develops 5G mobile communications products and solutions. They are working with leading industry players to push their 5G massive MIMO, multiple input, multiple output, and millimeter wave solutions to the market. Professor Kuchi has a PhD degree in electrical engineering from UT Arlington and has held research positions at organizations like Nokia and Sevet. Welcome, Professor Kiran, to the panel.
Hello, hi. Thank you. Thank you, Anand.
We have with us Dr. Lalit Mohan. Dr. Lalit is currently the Senior Vice President of Innovation and Research at Wells Fargo, India. Prior to Wells Fargo, he was working at IDRBT as Co-Principal Investigator of 5G Use Case Lab and Technology Consultant to public, private, rural, and cooperative banks. He has also worked as Technology Consultant with SR Innovation Exchange and Telangana Industrial Health Clinic. Lalit holds a PhD degree from IIIT Hyderabad and also mentors startups from time to time. In his current position at Wells Fargo, his focus areas are software engineering, data science, and cybersecurity collaboration with startups. Welcome, Dr. Lalit, to the panel. We have with us Dr. Anand Prasad. Dr. Anand is currently part of Deloitte Tomatsu Cyber as a partner. He is the co-founder of Venovator, which got acquired by Deloitte this year. His team brings holistic security solutions from their experience at Venovator towards a safe and secure society under the umbrella of Deloitte Tomatsu Cyber LLC. He has also served as Senior Security Advisor of Entity Docomo, advisor to CTIF, and advisor to Guardrails, and also as CISO and board member of Rakuten Mobile. He is a global executive for information and cyber security who has delivered security solutions for 5G, 4G, network function virtualization, SOC, Wi-Fi, mobile devices, enterprise, and GRC processes from scratch for secure connectivity towards a safer society. Welcome, sir, to the panel, and over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Anand. All right. I guess, Anand, we can start the panel now.
Yeah, sure, sir. Over to you.
All right. So, thanks, Anand. Thanks, everyone, for participating in this panel. I'm excited about the activity here, and with three great people around me. So, Kiran, Lalit, Floyd, welcome. I have to say that I have the easiest job here. I just ask questions, and I leave the difficult part to all of you to answer to those questions. And hopefully the audience will also ask a few questions. Let me say a few words before I shoot the first question. So we are talking today about, and let me say it's about 5G private networks. That's certainly a very important hot topic. We are hearing many other things around, but 5G being an important tool, let's say, or technology coming in, providing connectivity to many things, including the OT side, the Industry 4.0 that we are talking, and things like that. And the private networks that we are talking about, they are essentially, many of it are not yet connected, but slowly around the globe we are seeing connectivity happening there in many different ways because what 5G brings. Yeah, but at the same time, whenever I click news here and there, the OT and IT combination and the connectivity part brings new security issues as well, and many other different challenges. So what we are going to do in this panel today is talk a bit about the general aspects, the business aspects and things like that, and then go towards, based on using that base, goes to technology, regulations, and security aspects. And with that, hopefully, we have covered all of it in, I think now only in 30 minutes. Yeah, we'll stop sharp on time at 3:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Okay, so welcome again, everyone. Let me start with the first question. And if you see my eyes going this way, it's because I have a set of questions on this side of the screen. Yeah. So let's start with a general aspect here. And I would like all of you, based on my screen that I see in front of you, I'll start from Kiran, go to Lalit, and then to Floyd on this one. Look at the general aspect on 5G private networks. How do you see the market demand globally and specifically in India? And also market demand, but at the same time, what are the actual benefits of having this 5G private network? So asking Kiran first.
Yeah. So thank you, Anand. So let me jump into the answers right now. To the extent I understand, my experience comes from building the radio systems. I have been building the actual base stations, physical layer, protocol stacks that help other operators and vendors to deploy. That's what I've been doing in the last few years. So from what I understand, in US, they have this so-called CBRS band. So they hit a jackpot with that because it's a really sweet set of frequencies, around 3.5 gigahertz frequency range. And only in the borders, San Diego or around the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic, you have these restrictions on how you can't use this band maybe 20-30 kilometers inland, or even not.
Kiran, we cannot hear you.
These CBRS deployments have taken off for small cells in the US, at least that's what I understand. But we don't have that luxury because we are using pretty much a similar band for doing so-called, they are actually giving, from what I understand, millimeter wave bands to anybody who asks to do trials, citywide trials or different kinds of trials. I've seen this. So there's a huge demand for these private networks in Japan. I see it in also in Germany. There is talk of giving dedicated spectrum, and US they have a free band. So it's taking off. It remains to be seen to what extent these private networks will happen, but they're definitely a reality. And it seems like Wi-Fi 6 plus 5G combo working in CBRS band is really gaining traction in the United States, and CBRS band for rural 5G coverage is also gaining traction from what I understand in the United States, and this is also subsidized. Coming to India, I don't really see much room or activity or discussion on dedicated spectrum for small, these private networks. But overall, this seems to be a very, very interesting space to be in. I'll pause here.
Okay. Thanks, Kiran. Lalit, do you have any views on this point?
Sure. I would certainly echo with what Professor Kiran is saying, but few thoughts that I can share from banking perspective. If you look at any banking infrastructure across countries, they all have these payment rails, right? And there are branches that are connecting to the core banking system or the data centers. Today, they're all running on the traditional infrastructure, telecom infrastructure, either the MPLS or the lease lines, or in some cases, in the rural, in India, or in Africa, we have explored 3G, 4G connections. That brings its own challenges in terms of reliability, latency, availability, and so on and so forth. While I've not seen, as echoing with what Professor Kiran is talking about, but I certainly see a potential for the entire banking infrastructure in terms of having its own QoS, and I think it will be more interesting in Indian kind of a scenario where the telecom business got into the banking business, right? So we have these payment banks, and some of them are by the telecom companies. See how they will revolutionize and how their adoption of 5G could change some of the private networks setup. That's one aspect. But I also did in the past. I had a different hat, and we ran the 5G use cases lab, and Professor Kiran was certainly involved in that initiative from India perspective. There is some activity that I could see in the media around building the digital national digital financial infrastructure. So I'm guessing that would rely on some of the private network aspects to get the last mile connectivity.
Okay, going on the same point on the general aspect of the business and benefit of 5G private networks, so Floyd, would you have any views on that?
Yeah, and I think this is a huge opportunity, and let me address that in three different parts, right? So, like probably Lalit and Kiran said, you've got the first side, which is there an opportunity to take existing application and use cases and then use the low latency, high speed, reliable networks of 5G, correct? And that is number one, and you're already seeing. One is for standard applications, but number two, also can 5G be backup networks for critical infrastructure and stuff like that? So can you have, use a combination of fiber optics or, terrestrial networks, and then also have, your 5G, either as a backup or a combination of two. The second part is where you actually see all new applications. So today, let's take a step back. You had 3G, and then you had voice, and you had data moving over system. Then came 4G, and then you had much better video experiences and things like that. But the main thing is that it took 4G to arrive before a lot of this. And today you have OTT channels and a number of these platforms, right? And video is now mainstream. But it took 4G to come to enable that on mobile phone. Second part, which is the interesting space. There are tons of applications out there which are not even created today, and that's what you're looking at. And so I know, for example, in Singapore, we trialing a number of initiatives, right? So things like AR, VR. In fact, I was on a call with my sister just some time ago, and one of the things I was telling her about, and because of the lockdown, haven't seen family, and how do you create that experience today? Voice or sitting on this, this call right now, this video channel feels quite artificial. But you're seeing a lot of talk about the metaverse, which blends artificial, AR and virtual reality, kind of blends it together. And then what you have is, a real world experience, right, in a kind of a metaverse situation. And for example, today on a call, all the voice is coming straight from you. But if you can create a reality situation where you have people sitting at a table, and then where I was watching this conversation that the Facebook guys were having, where if I can experience one person sitting to the left of me, one person sitting to the right of me, people sitting in the front of me, and then you have that experiential effect, right? Same thing with sports, and like we were discussing just some time ago, Anand, with the Olympics. If I could experience this firsthand, like I'm sitting in, at the stadium, but okay, I'm social distancing, so I'm at home, and experience this real time, right? Now, these are applications of the future which require things like 5G to be available to make them a reality. And I think that's coming. Last but not the least, I know Kiran spoke about the blending of, let's say, 5G and kind of, the Wi-Fi, the next generation Wi-Fi. I think the more interesting thing is going to be the blending of 5G and satellite networks, because I think that is a space which is growing equally fast today, and perhaps getting rolled out slightly faster than, with Space Link and, the stuff that the guys at SpaceX are doing. But not just SpaceX, OneWeb, and a number of service providers where you have these mesh networks that's, pretty much up there, and cover most of Earth's surface, and then you're able to deliver this. And when you take space and 5G, blend that together, I think you're taking communication to a whole new level. You're enabling a whole new reality. And I think that is where the future lies, and that's where you're going to see demand creeping in. So, of course, traditional, applications moving on to a much better world. But number two, an all new reality created by AR, VR, and experiential living.
Okay, thanks, Floyd. What you're saying actually makes me think of moving towards 6G as well already, but very much agreed, maybe 15, 20 years back, I remember writing a paper with a research institute about HAPs and things like that, and all these floating things communicating to each other over lasers and stuff. But let me do one thing, and three of you said very interesting stuff, and I want to touch each one of you a bit separately on a bit separate kind of questions. Lalit, with your background on finance side and touching 5G and private networks, I see that fitting quite well in your organization, or in the business world or in the world you are in. Can you take me through a couple of use cases that you could think of that 5G and private networks could bring in finance sector?
5G, I think not many. Right, Floyd talked about AR, VR, and certainly something that we are excited about. We know that the user experience is the key today, right? In any banking stuff, you want to make sure that your Gen Z or Gen Z plus are excited about the user experience. So AR, VR is certainly one of our key things. And if you look at the ATM traditionally across the world have not been really economical in terms of what you're investing there and putting it. And with 5G, probably, there are a lot more things that you could do from an ATM rather than just being a box that is dispensing cash or collecting cash, right? Private networks, certainly. Network slicing is another important thing that banks have been contemplating in terms of usage. Edge computing, which would obviously come in once the 5G becomes new normal. Today, a lot of processing still happens in the data center or in the cloud. And what is that we could push to the edge is going to be very critical in terms of the entire banking business. There are cases where they're now talking about that you don't have to necessarily go to the network to move money between two customers, and those two mobiles could be talking to each other seamlessly, and that's going to be probably a new world. They'll do some settlement at some point in time, but not necessarily always go to the network to do the settlement. Right, trading is going to be really a cool thing. So you would have experienced 3G brought in some mobile banking, 4G certainly enhanced it. I don't know whether it is COVID or probably the startups. In India alone, we have seen about 14 million net new retail customers getting added to the equity market. That's phenomenal. And we are sure with 5G or the 6G, the trading is going to be much more, which means the real financial inclusion will happen rather than just opening a bank account for direct benefit transfers or any other basic transactions. So it's going to be a lot more exciting in terms of the overall experience for the customer.
Wow. So Lalit, you cover about changing the whole banking sector. So you're talking about using private networks for ATM. That's the whole, if I may say, conventional style, and then going towards complete fintech. And touching about the slicing, I see that even the fintech might play a role there. So
I actually want to make a statement, if I may. I know initially it used to be that technology-enabled banking and then technology-driving banking, and now we are seeing cases where banks have become technology shops, right? They are offering technology. So if you look at some of the neo banks, digibanks specifically, some of them in Europe, they are essentially banks which try to put banking platforms to offer banks another banking services. They're more of a software companies than really the traditional banks. And suddenly technology in banking is changing quite rapidly.
So I'll take it from there to Kiran, and I'll move towards more of a RAN aspect or base stations aspect that Kiran was mentioning, and spectrum aspect as well. we see the whole world changing in that side actually. If you look at radio access networks, the open and virtual RAN changed the world, and then the small cells have been playing a role, potentially also playing even more as we are talking about private networks. Yeah. So in that sense, I'll start from there. Get your initial views on radio access networks in 5G and then private networks, and I would actually move that more towards with that move towards the virtualization aspect and the implications of that. Kiran, please.
So you want me to talk about virtualization to an extent?
I want your views first about the different modes of RAN when we get into 5G arena, and then including the small cell parts, and then move towards the virtualization part, or whichever order you want to take. I don't want to dictate that.
So I've been following this with very keen interest. We've been developing small cell as well as macro cell internally. So I've been learning every day these shifts that have been happening. So what has really changed in the last few years is the emergence of this new breed of base station vendors who were traditionally core network providers. Their specialty is core network, but then they all moved to RAN space, mainly because of the RAN opportunities created.
Is it who's having trouble, or is it
Open RAN?
I think
access network, and almost to build to 20, people were really skeptical about it. But I think only 3 months ago, I heard this one statement from a very reasonably good expert. Kiran, I think now people start to believe that you can make ORAN work. I mean, that was a very big statement that I heard, because I myself was trying to do something in the ORAN space, but I was also kind of watching it. And we actually now decided to build our base station ORAN compliant. Now we are doing some POCs in that space. So this has created a huge shift, the ORAN interfaces. But then I've seen this press release by, I don't want to name them, one Scandinavian company, or rather one of the Scandinavian companies. They said, oh, ORAN is going to expose your base station to security threats. And where is this coming from? So this is really quite something. You know, they are saying that no, I give you a closed offering, I don't have any threats. Now you put two vendors and there is a security threat between the DU and RU. So ORAN has definitely is not going to go away. I mean, it's going to be there for a long time, but it will take time. Mark my words, it's going to take time before ORAN delivers the product, the quality, and the same level of tier one. It's going to take time, but it will happen. Then that comes to small cells. Actually, even small cell providers, they are doing an integrated G0B with RF and baseband, and they are doing a functional split at the protocol stack level. So there are two real cool things that are happening. You do a physical layer and RF as an integrated unit, and you put it on just like a Wi-Fi access point, okay, to kind of compare. It's kind of like an equivalent to a Wi-Fi access point. You put it as an indoor small cell or outdoor, and then you run fiber, you take it to a data center or wherever it is, and you do a functional split at protocol stack level. This I have seen. And more interestingly, I have had one vendor, actually they're deploying this. They're doing what is called virtual RAN, using small cells in an indoor environment. That is essentially, you have an office building or a mall. You distribute small access points, let's say maybe hundreds of them, and they put a small data center in the basement, and they are managing it. It is a reality now using virtual RAN. Here, the physical layer is actually running on the servers. So there are two models available here: option 7.2 and option 6, which are becoming quite popular. Wow, option 6, you can think of it as a small cell. So things are beginning to happen that affects both small cell space and the macro space with ORAN. These are the two major shifts I've seen, and then of course you have CU and the core. Yeah, I'll leave it here.
Thanks, Kiran. I appreciate that, and appreciate that you touched that point about the security noise also being made and stuff like that. I think I'll shift a bit towards that side, going to Floyd. I know, Floyd, you have a vast background, but now talking with your current activity, I wanted to touch start touching regarding security with you, and then move the rest of the panelists on security a bit more. Given this changes so moving towards 5G, changes in the RAN world, and then this private network context that we are discussing about, starting at a very high level, what are your thoughts on security implications? I'm keeping it very open at this point. Floyd, I cannot hear you.
I'm on here. All right. Very good point. And I think that's the security angle, right? And Kiran touched upon it, how you've got to look at security. And it depends what's going over 5G first. Number one is, if Lalit and the team are trying to then, use ATM networks, and Lalit and I were working together on that a few months ago, but any critical applications and things like that, security is a must, right? And here's where the challenge is. What happens traditionally on the past is you've always seen applications built and then security tried to be wrapped around that. But I think with things like 5G, you have the opportunity to put security at the core and then start to build applications around that, right? Which is the ideal way to do it, especially if you're looking at critical infrastructure and things like that. Also, when you look at 5G, remember that's just part of the network, right? There's of course the last mile on both sides, the connectivity. You've got your 5G network, but you've got your edge server, the edge devices there, and then you've got all sort of sensors or users that are dialing or using these networks. And I think that's where the key comes. On one side, you've got the servers also, which have last mile either directly or at some point go via a fiber optic or a Wi-Fi or local area. How do you deliver end-to-end security? Not just the 5G part, because 5G by itself natively is a lot more secure than 4G and the services that whatever came before that. Now 5G itself is secure, but what you need to look at the end-to-end thing. Like I was talking to some government folks, and their piece was great. I think we can look at both the fiber optic and the local network, and then look at the 5G piece, and we can use a hybrid blended approach, or we can have one as the main and the second as the backup. But let's say we are on this network and you've got critical infra running there, and you switch from your fiber optic or the existing network into 5G. Can you expect the same level of security? At that switch point, will it automatically deliver end-to-end security that I have? Remember, it's not just the 5G, which is very secure. What about the edge? What about the last mile piece? And can we ensure that? And I think that's where we are looking at, more modern approaches and emerging technologies to deliver that level of security. Now, do you already have that level of private net 5G networks and all? No, they're just getting set up. But I think now now's the opportunity to explore how you can, move away from traditional IP-related security and move towards things like digital signatures and all, to deliver this end-to-end security that goes on traditional networks, and also when you switch into 5G, either naturally via a hybrid system or as a backup network. And I think that's where we have the opportunity to build this end-to-end security for 5G. At least we are involved in that, but I can see a lot of people now asking the question. Great, we've got high-speed networks. They're going to be used for critical infrastructure, a lot of it for IoT. It could be things like remote surgeries, but also automotive, autonomous cars. Connecting with each other to make sure they don't crash and stuff like that. And those are low latency, you need really highly reliable low latency networks. And security is a key there. You can't afford to have these 5G networks getting compromised. But then you have you're taking risk to a whole new level. And I think today we have the opportunity to build this in.
Thanks, Lloyd. So you started off and you ended as well, security by design, and touched many different aspects, including identity aspect and access as well.
Access.
So if I take this question, we are actually coming very close to the end. I would have many more things to discuss, but I would like to go to Kiran now on security aspect. You touched a bit about certain on that side, but any further views that you might have?
Yeah, so see, if you have a very fat pipe, internet pipe, and you have a very large amount of compute, I think that you can get any amount of security you want, right? This is only a question of enabling the security end to end, both at the, I mean, we know that radio communication link all the way to the core is secure by design. So it's only the other parts that needs to be addressed, and the Floyd has just mentioned, when you go hop from one node to another, can you carry the same level of security? So let's say we address them. Then the fundamental question that comes to my mind is that I have a very powerful laptop. I am doing this internet session. Maybe this is mobile. Maybe I have enough compute to do security here. But then I'll give you another example I was just very recently working with. We have an electricity meter, and it is supposed to send a few hundred few bytes once in a while. Okay. Now, how do I make this entire end-to-end system secure? Because this is critical national infrastructure. So any number of things can go wrong. If I have a rogue meter that is communicating all the time, my 200 kilohertz radio channel is occupied all the time. That could be a risk for me. Or if I want to put a very heavy duty security application, is it going to affect my radio bandwidth? Okay. So a whole number of questions arise, and I have not seen very effective solution that address security for a given application. So that is to say, if I have a very low bandwidth sensor, what is the level of security needed? Because I am grappling with an energy meter. The price of the meter is 1,000 rupees or 1,100, 1,200, and the cost of modem is no more than 500 rupees. So less than 2,000 rupees or 2,300, there are tenders available, and you have to deploy about 250 million units. This is the vast scale. I'm just giving you one application. Do I have an end-to-end security? I don't know the answer yet, but this is a gold mine. It's a good mine. You can dig and really go and play there and solve it. I will leave it at that.
Yeah, thanks, Kiran. This is you touched a very practical aspect of tying in business to it, and then how to make it happen, and how to take it also as a deployment is anyhow continuing. Yeah. So let me ask Lalit as well on his views on security, keeping it still very, very wide, given that we are limited with time.
I'll try to wrap it up in 2-3 minutes, Anand. So I think one important thing is the close collaboration that would be required with the telecom or the MNOs and the banking regulator. That's going to be, today there is suddenly a collaboration that's building up. I think the collaboration is going to be much more imminent as we move into the 5G. Mobile is going to be very critical in terms of how banks use it rather than just providing a service. I think if there is going to be IoTs that are initiating transactions, mobile is going to be very critical in terms of being the gateway for some of these transactions. Third, I heard security by design. I think that's certainly required, but more than security for design, I would say design for security, design for privacy. So that, you're not thinking it as part of it, but you're looking at it as the most important thing when you're doing the design.
Okay, so let me do this. Given that we are left with 2 minutes, I'll ask for closing statements from all of you. But I see that if in that statement you can take you can mix a response to a question that's coming from the audience, is that how do you think we can ensure end-to-end security in a heterogeneous kind of architecture that 5G has, also multi-vendor ecosystem that it enables? So please think of this, and with that I also ask your closing remark, given that we are really running out of time. So starting with Kiran, please.
So I would like to close with this following remarks. In my opinion, not all bits are created equal. Okay, so the bits that flew into communication systems primarily carried voice for the last 50 or so years. Then in the past 10 years or so, we are seeing data bits. But unfortunately, all voice bits are created equal, but not all data bits are created equal. Okay, and the data bits that carry banking transactions of Lalit, and the data bits that carry electricity meter information of that I spoke about, and the data bits that carry our current conversation right now, they're not equal. and the data bits that carry, control of machines in a factory lab are not equal. So we are stuck with this spectrum pricing that comes from as a baggage, as a legacy from voice bits. So what to do? So there are no clear answers here. The value of the spectrum that carries massive machine communication type bits, at least a subclass, is not the same as voice bits and URLLC and so on and so forth. So I think the fundamental matter here is that when you sell or auction spectrum, it doesn't have the same value for different services, whether it is URLLC, EMBB, or massive IoT, or banking, or so on and so forth. This is something we have to think through. Okay, and security, I will leave it to the other experts. They know a lot more than I do. But this, my only point is we need to think the value of the bits.
Thank you. So all bits are not equal. Lalit, your thoughts?
No, I agree. I agree with comments, and Professor is always right. So, what I could also say is, the heterogeneous security. These are all very critical things, and I see a relevance of AI ML really kicking in, because it's not going to be anymore the traditional way of managing security. So, the networks will learn the patterns and accordingly behave, rather than doing the traditional way of handling security. So it will be a lot more exciting, a lot more technology kicking into the overall networks.
Thanks, Lalit. So Floyd?
Right, just to add there and to bring in the security on the last bit is, yes, based on the question, of course, what happens is you will have multiple service, you will go across multiple MNOs. And if you're going to do end-to-end security, it can't be the telco delivering the security. It has to be the organization that owns the application and that is facilitating the end-to-end, network. That owns the network to take control of its cybersecurity, of the security aspect, and manage that independently rather than rely on the telco, because the telco can only deliver one piece of it. And if you're going to be switching networks, you better own the security end to end. The network, the edge, and the computer and the connectivity into your servers and user systems at the far end on both sides. So
thank you very much.
Organization needs to own that. I hope that helps.
Yeah, you made a very good point that if you really want end-to-end, take it at the application. The rest will be anyway hop by hop. So I think time passed too fast. We have many more things to discuss. I couldn't even go through all the questions we had planned earlier, but that's the essence of this hot topic and important topic. I hope still it's valuable for the audience, and it was certainly good discussing with all of you. A lot of key points came up from all the way from spectrum to important security issues as well. But I think we'll leave you at this point. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for to the organizers again, and to the panelists certainly. Thank you.